If you've ever tried to solve the Rubik's Cube before, it might have seemed impossible, or at least if it was possible, you couldn't do it. But that's just because you didn't know the method for how to solve the Rubik's Cube. In this video, I plan to teach you that method. Using this video, you should be able to learn how to solve one of these within half an hour. Let's get started. Now, before we learn how to solve the Rubik's Cube, we need to learn notation. Now, notation is basically a language to explain different kinds of moves on the cube that make up algorithms. And all an algorithm is a sequence of moves that you do on the cube to achieve a certain result. I'm going to get out a different cube here just to explain notation. So notation is made out of letters, and each letter represents one side on the cube. So the way we do it is we assign each side on the cube one singular letter. Now, this sounds complicated, but really it's not very difficult to memorize. Now, the top, or up face, gets assigned U. The down, or bottom face, gets assigned D. The F, or front face, gets assigned F. The back face gets assigned B. The right face gets assigned R. The left face gets assigned L. Now, if you just see one capital letter like that, that means one clockwise rotation on that face. So a capital U would be turn the up face once 90 degrees clockwise. Capital R would be turn the right face clockwise. Capital D would be turn the down face clockwise. Now, I've seen a lot of people struggle with the back face because it feels like a clockwise rotation on the back face, so B would be like that, but it's really not. So a tip that I'm going to use in this video, and you should use it too if you're just starting out, is when you do a B move, turn the cube 180 degrees around like this. Do the move, so B would be like this, clockwise, and then turn the cube around 180 degrees again to go back to where you were before. Once you start to learn this and start to memorize some of these algorithms a little bit better, though, this should just be muscle memory that this is B, this is the reverse of B. Now, speaking of the reverse, if you see a little apostrophe next to a letter like that, also a little dash, that means prime. That apostrophe is called prime. And that just means to do a counterclockwise rotation on that face. So F prime would be like that. You can also call it F inverted if that helps you more, or just inverted. U prime would be like this. R prime would be like this. And so on for all the faces. So B prime, again, turned around 180 degrees, would be like this. It wouldn't be like this, because that's F prime. You always have to remember that B goes in the opposite direction of F. So this is F, this is B. F prime, B prime. All right, and then what's the notation for turning a side 180 degrees? Well, then you put a 2 next to the letter. So U2 is like this. Oh, and by the way, in this video, I'm going to use what's called finger tricks, which is just moving the one side with your finger, but if it helps, you could just use your hand. So U2 is like this. F2 is like this. R2 is like this. B2 is like this. Now, what I like about 2 is that it doesn't really matter what direction you go in. R2 could be like this, but it could also be like this, and they both achieve the same result, no matter if your cube is solved or not. So D2, I haven't really explained that a lot, but D2 is like that. L2 would be like that. F2 is like that. Okay, so when you see an algorithm, it will be made up of sets of these letters, and each letter will either be standalone, or it will have a little dash next to it, which means prime, or it will have a 2 next to it, which means turn that side twice, clockwise or counterclockwise, your choice. So that's notation. Now we can finally get to work on this scramble cube. So this video is going to be broken up into 7 segments from here on out. And that's because there are 7 different steps to solving the Rubik's Cube. Now, the method I'm going to teach you is called the beginner's method. It's basically designed to be easy to memorize and easy to learn from. So this is the first step. So the first step is to get a white cross. So we need these pieces here. So, I'm just going to scramble this up again. We want to hold white on top, like this. And then we want to look in the bottom layer for any edge piece that has white on it. So any edge piece that has white on it. Now, in this case, we don't, and this is a good example because you're not always going to have a white piece in the bottom layer. So if you don't have a white piece in the bottom layer, find one and find a way to bring it to the bottom layer. This is just intuitive. You have to learn how to do this on your own. There's not really any algorithms or an easy method to figure out this, but once we have it on the bottom layer, you're going to figure out the color other than white on it. So in this case, it's orange. Now, just align that piece. It's already aligned here, but align that piece below its center. So orange is the orange center right here, and then white is up here. So it needs to go up here. So if we just do an F2, it's in the correct position, but it's not in the correct orientation. You're going to be hearing those a lot in this video. It basically needs to be flipped around. Now, you can figure this out intuitively, or you can use an algorithm. So intuitively would be like, maybe I can move it back down, then I can move it maybe over and up, then back, and then if I already had an edge piece in here, then I'd have to move that back. And then the algorithm for this, if you prefer to learn that instead, is F prime, L, D, L prime, F2. There you go, just like magic. Now, just repeat that step. So we look in the bottom layer for any piece with white on it. We see this here. Then orient it below its center. This one's got blue, so we need to bring it below the blue center. And then just do an F2 if these line up, or if they don't, you can do that algorithm or figure it out intuitively. Now, there's no piece on the bottom layer, but I do see this piece, which is connected to its center already. So we can do, just move like that to bring it up to where it needs to go. And then the last piece is this white piece. Now, or this white and green piece. Now we need to bring this to the bottom layer. So we bring it to the bottom layer, and then it messes up this piece. But we can simply move this out of the way, and then bring that piece back up. And then we can, if we pretend that it's inserted wrong, you can either like do it intuitively, or you can do the algorithm, which is, again, F prime, L, D, L prime, F2. And there you go. So you've now got the cross. Now the next step is to get the entire white face, but we're not just getting the white face, we're getting these colors too. We're basically going to get this entire layer of pieces. So to do this, we're going to use one algorithm. We're going to be using it a lot, so it would be useful to memorize this rather than just going off of this video, because it's also very short. So I'll teach you that algorithm in a second. First of all, we need to kind of do a repeat of the last step and scan the bottom layer for any corner piece, this time a corner piece that has white on it, and we see this one. Now, this one has also green and orange on it, so we find where it needs to go, which is between the white, green, and orange pieces, and we orient it below that slot. So we just turn the bottom layer until it's below where it needs to go. Now, you're going to do this algorithm until it gets into its slot. R prime, D prime, R, D. Now you can see now it's in this slot. Memorize that algorithm, by the way, but now it is in this slot, but it's in the wrong orientation. So we can continue doing that algorithm, R prime, D prime, R, D, and it's back in its slot, and it's oriented differently, but it's still wrong. Now, if we do it a couple more times, it's in its correct slot. So just keep doing that algorithm until it's correct. Now we're just going to repeat that step. If you find that the bottom layer has no white corners on it, just hold an unsolved slot here on the right and towards you, and then do the algorithm, and you'll have a white piece on the bottom. Now we're just going to repeat. Now just keep scanning the bottom layer for a white corner piece, orient it below its slot, and then continue doing the algorithm, and make sure. It might not seem important, but you need to make sure to do the D move at the end. And just keep doing R prime, D prime, R, D until it gets into its slot in the correct orientation. You can see this one is in its slot, but in the wrong orientation, so we need to bring it to the bottom layer with that algorithm. Now it's below its slot, and we can continue doing the algorithm until it's solved. Now, congratulations, you've solved one complete layer on the Rubik's Cube. So next, we're going to get the complete first two layers. So we're going to get these 4 edge pieces. Remember, the centers don't move, so they're already solved. but we need these 4 edge pieces. So the blue and red, the blue and orange, the orange and green, and the green and red. There are 2 algorithms that you need to learn here, and they're kind of long, so you can memorize them if you want, but you don't have to. First of all, we're going to look through the top layer for any edge piece that doesn't have white on it. In this case, we've only got one, but it's this piece, the orange and blue. Now you can skip to this time if you don't have any piece on the top layer without yellow on it, or you can just continue watching. I'll teach you in a second. Okay, so we're going to find that piece and move the top layer until it lines up with its respective center here. Now we need to look at this. Does it need to go to the right? In this case it does. Or does it need to go to the left, which it does not here? If it needs to go to the right, then you're going to do this algorithm. U, R, U prime, R prime, U prime, F prime, U, F. And that's going to put it in. Now, if the piece here needs to go to the left, this is going to be basically the reverse of that last algorithm. So it's U prime, L prime, U, L, U, F, U prime, F prime. There you go. It's in. So now we can repeat that for the rest of the edges. I can do the algorithm pretty fast, but you do not have to do it this fast. And now you'll have all of these in. If you don't have any pieces in the top layer that don't have yellow on them, and one of these pieces, or at least one, is not correct, then just do one of those algorithms. So do one of the 2 algorithms I taught you. I'll do the left version. And now I have a piece on the top layer that does not have yellow on it. And now I can continue with this step. And now from here on, you won't have that case again, unless of course you scramble the cube again and try and solve it again. Okay, so once you have the middle layer, now our next step is going to be to get a yellow cross. It doesn't matter if these colors match up here on the sides. In my case, only 2 of mine do. It only matters that we have a yellow cross. So there's only one algorithm in this step, and it's only 6 moves long, so this step is probably easier than the last one. So we're only going to be looking at these edges and the center. Now, if you don't have any yellow facing up, then just do this algorithm, and this is the one that we're going to be using for this step. So F, U, R, U prime, R prime, F prime. Now, if you do that with the dot, then it will get you to the line. Now, if you just start with the line, then you're just going to turn it this way. Or if you got here from the dot, it's the same either way. Just turn it so that it's horizontal. It doesn't matter if it's horizontal this way or horizontal the other way. And then just do that algorithm again, and that will get you to the L. So the L is going to be our master case. This is going to be what we want to get every other case into. Then just do, if you have the L oriented so that one edge is facing away from you and one is facing to the left, then do the algorithm and you will have the cross. Congratulations. Remember to orient the L the wrong way, and if you have one case, just go to that case in this video and do the algorithm, and then go to the next case, do the algorithm, and just do that until you have the yellow cross. Okay, so the next step is going to be to get completely yellow facing up. So it doesn't matter what these colors look like around here. We're going to solve that in the next 2 steps. But you just want to have the complete yellow face facing up. In this step, there's only one algorithm, and I'll teach you that in a second. So there are 6 different cases here, but we're still going to use the algorithm the same for each one. So I'm going to go over each of the cases individually. So if you have this case where you have 2 yellow facing towards you and one facing to the right and one facing to the left, and those last 2 are in the back, it doesn't matter which orientation, you just need to turn the top layer until you can see that, if you have this case. Then just turn it so that the 2 yellow facing in the same direction are facing to the left, and then do the algorithm, and this is the algorithm. R, U, R prime, U, R, U2, R prime. And that will get you to this case. Now, if you have this case, then with one corner already solved, and if you hold that on the left and towards you, then you see yellow here. If you have that case, then keep it oriented the same way and do the algorithm. Now, if you have what looks like a similar case with one yellow facing up, but here you do not see yellow, simply do the algorithm, and that will take you to the last case we covered, which you can orient and do the algorithm. If you have this case where 2 yellow are facing towards you and 2 yellow are facing away, then just do the algorithm, and then that'll set up this case. Now, if you have this case, then with 2 yellow facing up that are opposite each other, and then these 2 are not solved, then just orient it so that you see yellow here and there's 1 here. Don't do it this way. Do it this way. And then just do the algorithm, and that will set up this case, which you just put these facing towards you, do the algorithm, and then that will set up this last case, which you can do like that. If you have this case where you have 2 yellow corners here, and then yellow facing opposite each other here, you just want to have these in the front, do the algorithm, and then that will set up this first case that we covered. And then from here, you could just do it. So those are all 6 cases covered. And now what we're going to do is completely solve the cube. Okay, so in the next step, we're going to get all the corners, the yellow corners, into their correct positions. Okay, so there are only 2 different cases in this step, and there is only 1 algorithm that we need to use. So you'd think it's simple. The algorithm is actually probably the most complicated in this entire video, however, so just be prepared for that. Now, the first case is where you have 2 corners solved and 2 corners unsolved. Now, if you don't think you have any corners solved, you simply have to turn the top face until you have at least 2 solved. Now, if you have 2 solved and they're next to each other, you want to hold them in the back and do this algorithm. R prime, F, R prime, B2, R, F prime, R prime, B2, R2, U prime. That U prime is optional. And then you will have all 4 of the corners solved. So the next case is where you have 2 corners solved, but they're opposite from each other. They're on a diagonal. Now, this is a little bit harder to recognize, but if you just do U moves, you will eventually see it. So in this case, we're just going to hold it in any orientation and do the algorithm. And then that will set you up for this case, in which case you would put the 2 solved corners in the back and then do the algorithm, and boom, there you go. Now the next step is to solve the cube. Finally, right? Now there are 4 cases for this step and 2 algorithms. They're kind of easy to memorize. They're kind of in the middle, I suppose. Probably about on the same level as those algorithms for when we made the middle layer. So the first 2 cases each have 1 solved edge. So look for a solved edge and you know it's one of these first 2 cases. Now the first one is where if you look at the top, this piece here needs to go to here, and then this one needs to go to here, and then this one needs to go to here. So that path looks like here, to here, to here, to here. So to solve this, so basically this is like a counterclockwise rotation, and there's an algorithm to solve this. So the algorithm is F2, U prime, R prime, L, F2, R, L prime, U prime, F2. That's it. Congratulations. Now, the other case is where you have the same thing. You have 1 solved edge. In this one, the unsolved edges need to rotate clockwise. So this one needs to go to here, which needs to go to here, which needs to go to here. So it's a clockwise rotation. Now, this one is very similar to the last one. Actually, it's incredibly similar. There's only a 2 move difference. So the algorithm for this is F2, U, R prime, L, F2, R, L prime, U, F2. And there you go. The cube is solved. Now, there are 2 more cases, and in these cases, you don't have any solved edges. So this is the first case where these 2 edges need to swap. They need to swap here. And then the other 2 edges also need to swap. Here, these need to swap. Now, in this case, you can do either of the algorithms. I'll do the one that cycles them counterclockwise. And now that will set up one of the cases that we've already covered. So this one, they need to go clockwise, so I'll do that. And that will solve the cube. Now the next case is very similar to the last one. You still don't have any solved edges, but this edge here needs to swap this with the one opposite of it, and it's the same for the other 2 edges. So you'll see opposite colors here. So these need to swap, and these need to swap. It looks like a little plus if you draw the arrows on it, like this. So the algorithm for this case, you can do either of the algorithms that I've already covered. So you can do the clockwise one or the counterclockwise one. I'll just do the clockwise one. And then that sets up one of the two cases that we covered first, and then we can just do the algorithm, which is clockwise again. And congratulations, you've solved your Rubik's Cube. I know that this is something that you probably never thought you'd be able to do, so congratulations, you've finally done it. Now go share this with your friends and have them be super impressed. You've earned it. I hope this video was very helpful to you. I plan to make more videos on the Rubik's Cube in the future, and I will see you guys next time.